You're my Temu Balin.
Oh, get that on a t-shirt. Hello and welcome to Wyrd Wessex. I'm Andy.
And I'm Craig. So, in the past, we've covered the Welsh Triangle, the Falkirk Triangle, and today we're diving into something that doesn't seem to get much coverage these days, but it was absolutely huge when I was a kid. It's the Bermuda Triangle.
I mean, that was the one, wasn't it? That was like the one when you're a kid that you're just like, whoa, how are we not talking about this all the time? This is so, yeah.
I'm still like that.
That's fair. I guess that's why we're doing an episode on it. I guess partly because it's largely been debunked as being no more of a disappearance hotspot than like any other part of the ocean, right?
Way to shit on my episode before we get going.
Well, we like to keep it real. We like to keep it real.
But no, I mean, I find that more scary. Like, at least if I can avoid like one triangular patch of sea, then I'll probably be okay. But like, if this kind of phenomenon is happening everywhere, then I'm never getting on a boat again.
And you are known to travel by boat quite a bit, I guess.
That's how I get to work.
When the marshes flood, with those flat lands. It's fair though. It's fair. So, what sparked your interest in the Bermuda Triangle, like recently, given its debunked status?
Well, I've been doing some reading, as I want to do, you know.
Do you like a good book?
Yeah. Specifically, I recently got a couple of books by Charles Berlitz. Show them off for the camera here.
Nice.
The Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Triangle.
We've done dragons.
This is the Dragon's Triangle.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think Charles is particularly a household name anymore. But he was kind of like the original author that popularized the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, he was quite a bit of he was a bit of a character, wasn't he, Charles Berlitz? He had a proper weird childhood. Like his father ordered, didn't every relative under his father's orders, and like every servant in the household have to speak to him in a different language.
Yeah, that's it. His father spoke to him in German, his grandfather in Russian, his nanny in Spanish. Like, yeah, can you imagine that? He actually ended up speaking 8 languages fluently by adolescence. But in adulthood, he recalled having had the childhood delusion that every human being spoke a different language, wondering why he didn't have his own language like everyone else in his household.
I kind of like that. I think it's a useful thing, isn't it? But very confusing for a little kid. He spent 13 years on active duty in the US Army after when he grew up as well, mostly in intelligence. He became a prolific writer on paranormal phenomena. He wrote several books on Atlantis, claiming it was real based on his interpretations of geophysics, psychic studies, classical literature, tribal law, and archaeology. And Charles really brought into the Bermuda Triangle, and he really brought it into the public consciousness as well.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And it's probably worth mentioning early on that while Berlitz certainly popularized the Bermuda Triangle, he also has a habit of kind of sensationalizing the reports. He wasn't always the most rigorous with his sources, often blending official incident reports with folklore and eyewitness accounts, sometimes even exaggerating details to make the stories more compelling.
So he sort of knew how to spin a good yarn and tell a story that would really grab people.
Yeah. That's not to say that the incidents weren't real. They were, and many remained genuinely baffling. But his books really ramped up the mystique, pushing it into the global legend of disappearances. That's probably a big part of why it was so huge when we were kids and why it became such a household name.
So for listeners who might only know the name, let's nail down the geography. Where is this infamous triangle?
There's a specific section of the Western Atlantic off the southeast coast of the United States. It forms what's been famously termed a triangle, stretching from Bermuda in the north to southern Florida. And then it heads east through the Bahamas, past Puerto Rico to about 40 degrees west longitude, and then loops back again to Bermuda. It's a huge expanse, and what makes it so disturbing is that this area holds an almost unbelievable place in the world's catalogue of unexplained mysteries.
And when we say unexplained mysteries, we're talking about disappearances, right?
Yeah, it's where more than 100 planes and ships have literally vanished into thin air, most of them since 1945. And the name itself, Bermuda Triangle, wasn't just pulled out of thin air, was it? It was tied to a specific incident.
Absolutely is. It earned its name as a direct result of the disappearance of 6 Navy planes and 14 crew members on December the 5th, 1945. 5 Avenger torpedo bombers, tough combat-proven machines with over 1,000 miles of fuel range, simply vanished. And it wasn't even bad weather. The day was deceptively calm. 65 degrees, bright sunshine, scattered clouds, moderate northeast wind. Pilots who'd flown earlier reported ideal conditions. It was a standard 2-hour training mission, ironically following a triangular pattern from Fort Lauderdale to Bimini and back. Lieutenant Charles Taylor, their commander, had over 2,500 hours of flying time. Every pilot and crewman was experienced. There was no reason for anything unusual to happen, but something did happen.
About an hour in, at 3:15 p.m, the radio man at Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station Tower, expecting a routine check-in, instead received this.
Calling tower, this is an emergency. We seem to be off course. We cannot see land. Repeat, we cannot see land.
What is your position?
We're not sure of our position. We cannot be sure just where we are. We seem to be lost.
And then the tower, trying to orient them, advises them to assume a bearing due west, but Taylor's response is unsettling.
We don't know which way is west. Everything is wrong. Strange. We can't be sure of any direction. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should.
I mean, imagine that. Not only are your instruments failing, but your very perception of the world around you is warped.
And it wasn't just Taylor. Around 3:30 p.m, the senior flight instructor at Fort Lauderdale picked up a message from a student flyer, Powers, asking about his compass. Powers said, "I don't know where we are. We must have got lost after that last turn." The Flight 19 instructor then confirmed, "Both my compasses are out. I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down." He was completely disoriented. Flight 19 could no longer hear the tower, but the tower could hear conversations between the planes. Messages referenced fuel shortages, enough for only 75 miles, and a 75 mile per hour wind. But the truly unnerving detail was that every gyro and magnetic compass in all 5 planes were off, going crazy, as it was reported, each showing a different, wildly inaccurate reading.
Some claim the last words from Flight 19 were,
"It looks like we are..."
Others recall,
"Entering white water. We are completely lost."
rescue craft were dispatched, notably a twin-engine Martin Marina flying boat with a crew of 13. Minutes after takeoff, the rescue Martin Marina reported strong winds, then vanished. All search units received an urgent message. 6 planes, not 5, were now missing. The rescue plane and its crew of 13 were gone.
No further messages were ever received from Flight 19 or the Mariner. Though around 7 p.m, Miami's Opa-locka Naval Air Station received a faint FT, FT, part of Flight 19's call letters. But if real, it was 2 hours after they should have run out of fuel. That's a significant anomaly. The original air search was suspended due to darkness. The next day, one of history's most intensive searches began at daybreak, involving 240 planes, 67 more from an aircraft carrier, 4 destroyers, submarines, Coast Guard vessels, hundreds of private craft, even RAF and Royal Navy units. They meticulously inspected 380,000 square miles of land and sea over 4,100 search hours. The result? Nothing. No life rafts, no wreckage, no oil slicks. Beaches were checked and combed over for weeks for identifiable flotsam, without success. It was as if they had simply ceased to exist.
All leads were investigated. A reported red flare was denied. A merchant ship's explosion report at 7:30 p.m. would mean the Avengers were flying hours after exhausting fuel. No SOS messages were received from Flight 19 or the rescue mission.
And it defies all training. Avengers could make smooth water landings, staying afloat for 90 seconds, with crews trained to abandon ship in 60 seconds. Life rafts were available. They should have floated and been found. Something should have been found. Even with swells, planes could have landed in troughs sort of between them. One board member famously commented, "They vanished as if they had flown to Mars." That's where the weird elements of space travel and possible UFOs begin to intertwine with the Bermuda Triangle legend. Serious investigators and oceanographers still offer opinions on how so many ships and planes could disappear without a trace.
Lieutenant Commander R.H. Wershing, a training officer at the time, thinks the word disappear is key, as no proof has ever shown that they perished. Even a mother of one of the lost pilots felt that her son was
still alive somewhere in space.
And Dr. Manson Valentine, a scientist watching the area, stated,
"They're still here, but in a different dimension of a magnetic phenomena that could have been set up by a UFO."
A Coast Guard officer on the board was frankly honest.
"We don't know what the hell is going on out there."
One extra detail didn't come to light for 29 years when Lieutenant Taylor's final words were reported on a television program to be,
"Don't come after me. They look like they're from outer space."
Now, here's where it gets more weird. Given how we recently covered the Premonitions Bureau, Flight 19 was short one man, a Corporal Alan Cosner, because he had requested removal from flying status due to a premonition. And this wasn't the earliest reports of weird goings on in the area, was it? Like Christopher Columbus experienced something too.
He absolutely did. In fact, the very first recorded oddities from what we now call the Bermuda Triangle actually come from Christopher Columbus's log diaries during his first voyage to the New World in 1492. According to his logs, on October the 11th, 1492, he noted erratic compass readings. Apparently, the compass was pointing strangely, almost as if it was set off by several degrees from where it should have been. And he also wrote about seeing strange lights in the distance, even a large ball of fire crashing into the sea one night. Some accounts also mention him noting patches of white water, and even his crew being unnerved by the vast amounts of seaweed they encountered in what we now know as the Sargasso Sea, fearing they'd get stuck or even dragged down.
So even the very first European explorers felt something off about this area, but what's truly chilling is that the disappearances didn't stop with Flight 19. That incident seemed to open the floodgates. Just a couple of years after the Flight 19 incident, on July 3rd, 1947, a US Army C-54 flying a routine flight from Bermuda to Palm Beach with a crew of 6 vanished. Its last reported position was about 100 miles off Bermuda. An immediate intensive air-sea search covered over 100,000 square miles, but they found almost nothing. Some seat cushions, an oxygen bottle was sighted, but they couldn't even confirm if they were from the lost plane. No wreckage, no oil slick, it was just gone.
And then came the Star Tiger and her sister ship, the Star Ariel. These were British South American Tudor four-motor passenger planes, essentially converted Lancaster bombers. The first to go missing was a Star Tiger on January the 29th, 1948. It was a commercial flight with passengers. It was flying from the Azores to Bermuda, carrying a crew of 6 and 25 passengers, including a very notable figure, Sir Arthur Conyngham, a British World War II Air Marshal. It was due to land at Kindley Field, Bermuda, at 10:30 p.m. Just before its estimated time of arrival, the pilot radioed the control tower. His message included the words, "Weather and performance excellent, and expected to arrive on schedule." He reported his position at 380 miles northeast of Bermuda. And then, silence. Total silence. No further messages, no SOS, no emergency signal, no indication of any malfunction under what the pilot described as optimum conditions. By midnight, it was long overdue, and the next day, a massive search operation began. 30 planes and 10 ships combed the area for days.
But there were some incredibly weird post-disappearance reports related to the Star Tiger, weren't there?
Absolutely was. While the search was ongoing, numerous ham radio operators along the Atlantic coast and even further inland picked up these garbled messages. It sounded like words spelled out by numbered dots, almost as if someone was trying to send Morse code but didn't know it properly. The dots spelled out Tiger. But it gets weirder still. A Coast Guard station in Newfoundland reported that as the taps stopped, someone had apparently sent a verbal message, simply pronouncing the letters G A H N P, the call letters of the Lost Star Tiger.
Yeah, and while these messages were officially presumed to be hoaxes, you have to admit it's an incredibly specific and unnerving detail. And then, barely a year later, the Star Tiger's sister ship also vanished, the Star Ariel, carrying a crew of 7 and 13 passengers, disappearing on January 17th, 1949, on a flight between Bermuda and Jamaica. Like its predecessor, weather conditions were good, the sea calm. The captain sent a routine flight report about 55 minutes after takeoff, saying they'd reached cruising altitude, fair weather, and expected to arrive in Kingston as scheduled. He even mentioned changing radio frequency to pick up Kingston, but that was the last anyone ever heard from the Star Ariel.
So, 2 major commercial aircraft, essentially twins, vanishing within a year, both in good condition, both without any distress signals.
And it wasn't just the big planes. The years following Flight 19 and the Star Tiger incident saw a relentless string of similar disappearances. In December of 1948, a DC-3 with 32 passengers and crew vanished on a routine charter flight from San Juan to Miami. And that's just one. We're talking about no less than 9 smaller planes vanishing off the coast of Florida in December 1949 alone.
And this continued through the 50s and beyond?
Absolutely. The 50s were particularly active. We're talking about a US Globemaster disappearing on March 1950 on the northern end of the Triangle. A British York transport with 33 aboard vanished in February 1952. And a US Navy Constellation with 42 people on board disappeared in October 1954. All in fair weather.
And was it always the same outcome? No wreckage, no clear distress calls?
Yeah, often just weak garbled signals or nothing at all, followed by massive searches that yield no debris. Later in the decade, we saw a B-25 cargo plane go missing in April 56, and a US Navy Martin Marlin seaplane with a crew of 10 vanished in November 56. And the disappearances didn't slow down into the 60s.
In January 1962, a US Air Force KB-50 tanker disappeared, echoing the fate of earlier military transports. And then, in August 1963, when 2 brand new Air Force KC-135 4-engine stratotankers, flying together, vanished 300 miles southwest of Bermuda. 2 planes, same model, same time, just gone. And in every single one of these cases, the crews had ample life-saving equipment in case of ditching. So whatever happened to these planes, it happened unexpectedly and, most importantly, extremely quickly. They didn't have time to send a clear distress call, deploy rafts, or even struggle. Actually, something really interesting popped up a couple of years ago. You know how they were still searching for the wreckage of Flight 19?
Yeah.
Well, not too long ago, a documentary team looking for those World War II planes made an unexpected discovery off the Florida coast, right in the general area of the Bermuda Triangle.
Ooh, I think I heard about this. Was it Yellow Feathers?
Yep, that's it. A bunch of Big Bird's feathers. No, he never went up there in the end, remember? You made a short on it.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, for those who maybe didn't catch the short or know the story, I'll redo the short quickly for you right now. So in the early 1980s, looking for ways to get kids excited about space exploration, NASA approached the creators of Sesame Street with a surprising proposal. They suggested that they send Big Bird with puppeteer Carol Spiney inside the costume on a space shuttle mission. Unfortunately, the plan didn't take flight, as the massive 8'2" Big Bird costume wouldn't have fit in the cramped space shuttle. Luckily for Sesame Street fans everywhere, NASA decided to go with the teacher instead, Krista McAuliffe. And while this ultimately ended in the tragedy of the Challenger disaster of 1986, if Big Bird had been on board, it's hard to imagine the psychological impact on children everywhere as they watch the slow descent of yellow feathers from the sky.
Fucking hell. Oh.
My favourite short, that is.
Oh, it's good.
That short's the most expensive short we've ever done, because I had to buy the feathers and they cost me £1.
There you go, yeah.
Yeah, the English singer-songwriter Frank Turner, who some might remember from our interview on the New Forest episode. I mean, he's done some other stuff, but he's probably most famous for that one.
I imagine so, yeah.
Yeah. But he also did a great song about this story, although he did omit the bit about Big Bird.
Maybe you can do a re-release of it, just throw that in. He's done some good videos recently with like fans in doing weird bits. He could have you there sprinkling the feathers. It'd be good. Just send him a message. So anyway, where were we? Oh yes, the Bermuda Triangle. So what the documentary makers actually found was a 20-foot segment of the Challenger, complete with its distinctive thermal tiles. It was found by divers filming for a History Channel series. It was one of the largest pieces recovered since the disaster in 1986. So while it's not a mystery in the same way as the vanishing Flight 19, it's incredibly poignant to think that the wreckage from such significant modern tragedy also ended up in those waters, and it was only found now, decades later, while searching for an older mystery. It adds to that eerie sense of history and loss in the region.
Yeah, and the Bermuda Triangle isn't just about planes, is it? The ocean itself has claimed its fair share of vessels in this same unsettling fashion, and we're talking about disappearances going way, way back.
Way back, like even before the 20th century and Flight 19?
Oh, absolutely. The records of ships simply vanishing in the Western Atlantic, leaving no wreckage or bodies, goes back centuries. Even major naval ships have been lost. We're talking about the USS Insurgent in August 1800 with 340 men on board, for example. Though it's worth noting the USS Scorpion sub that went down in 68, while a massive disaster with 99 crew, was eventually located deep underwater, about 460 miles southeast of the Azores. So, not a true disappearance in the Bermuda Triangle sense of vanishing without a trace. Alright, so if we exclude the ones that were eventually found, what other naval ships are we talking about here?
Well, there's a USS Pickering in August 1800, gone with 90 crew en route to the West Indies. Then the USS Wasp, October 1814, sailing the Caribbean with 140 crew. And the USS Wildcat in October 1824, just 14 crew, disappearing en route from Cuba. And it gets even more dramatic still. In January 1880, the HMS Atlanta vanished en route from Bermuda to England. It had a total of 290 people on board, mostly naval cadets in training. The British Navy mounted a huge search for the Atlanta. They sent 6 ships from the Channel Fleet to advance in a line spread out for miles, scouring the entire area. They searched for months, until early May, without finding a single thing.
But probably the most famous naval disappearance before Flight 19, the one that really cemented this area's reputation, was the USS Cyclops. March 4th, 1918, en route from Barbados to Norfolk, Virginia, with 309 naval personnel aboard. This was during World War I, so initially everyone thought it had struck a mine or encountered a German submarine or a surface raider. Some even whispered about a mutiny or betrayal by its German-born captain who changed his name. But what made it even weirder was that the Cyclops had abruptly turned south instead of north when it left Barbados, and then it just vanished. But later on, German naval records confirmed there was no German subs or mines in that area at the time. There was even a British ship, also named Cyclops, that was sunk by U-boats in the North Atlantic, which caused even more confusion.
And it was carrying manganese ore, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Manganese ore is essential for steel production, and decades after the war, some German agents in South America actually took credit, claiming they'd placed tiny bombs in the cargo. Whether that's true or just them taking credit for a successful mystery, who knows? But the fact remains the USS Cyclops disappeared without a definitive explanation.
Now we get into some of the truly baffling ones, where the ships were found, but the crews vanished. Like the French ship Rosalie, bound for Havana in 1840. The ship was found unmanned, sails set, cargo intact, except for one canary. If it was pirates, they seemed way more interested in the people than the treasure. And in February 1855, the 3-masted James B. Chester was found sailing aimlessly in the Sargasso Sea, completely without crew, but again, sails set. Inside, tables and chairs knocked over, personal belongings strewn about, but cargo intact. Lifeboats in place, no bloodshed, just everyone was gone. Though the ship's papers and compass were also missing, which is a key detail.
And then there's the almost unbelievable incident with the American schooner Ellen Austin in 1881. Sailing west of the Azores, they found an abandoned schooner, ship-shape, sails furled. The captain of the Ellen Austin put a prize crew aboard it, but before they could get it moving, a sudden squall hit and the two ships lost contact. 2 days later, they found the derelict again, but the prize crew had vanished. The captain was determined to have that schooner, and after much convincing, he got a new crew to man the mysterious ship. Shortly after, another squall came up. Contact was lost again, and neither the vessel or the second prize crew was ever seen again. It's almost like the abandoned ship itself was some kind of trap.
Oh, yeah. And the list of cargo ships, fishing vessels, and pleasure craft that have vanished with their crews is genuinely impressive. Most of these ships disappeared in good weather and, crucially, left no floating wreckage, no oil slicks or lifeboats or life jackets. It's just like the disappearing planes. The ships sent no SOS messages and reported nothing wrong over their transmitters.
These vanishing ships have included the Cotopaxi, a freighter bound for Havana in 1925, the Sudefco, a freighter sailing south from Port Newark in 1926, the Stavanger in 1931 with 43 persons on board, last located south of Cat Island, and the freighter Anglo-Australian in March 1938 with a crew of 39, which radioed
All well.
as it passed the Azores on its way west, and then silence.
But there was one spectacular last radio message that really stands out. It was from the Japanese freighter Raifuku Maru, presumably at the time of its disappearance between the Bahamas and Cuba during the winter of 1924. The words of this radio message were an unusual call for help. Danger like a dagger now. Come quickly. We cannot escape. That was without ever specifying what the danger actually was. So, what do the experts think about the Bermuda Triangle?
All right, so let's try to get a bit more grounded here. So scientists and official sources often point to a mix of perfectly natural but still dangerous phenomena, talking about extreme weather. The Bermuda Triangle is right in an area prone to sudden violent storms, hurricanes, and these massive rogue waves that we mentioned. A sudden unexpected weather event can swamp a ship or bring down a plane in an instant, especially with older tech and less warning.
So, just Mother Nature very angry at us then?
Pretty much. And then there are the magnetic anomalies. So some folks say that compasses act weird because of the agonic line, where magnetic north and true north align, passing through there, which could throw off navigation. And of course, there's always human error. Even the most experienced crews can make mistakes, especially when combined with unpredictable conditions or mechanical failure.
Yeah, a lot of experts like the US Navy and Coast Guard will tell you there's no more disappearances here than any other busy ocean area. It's just that the stories got super popular and kind of just blew up, thanks in no too small part to authors like Charles Berlitz. Okay, so that's the official line on the scientific theories. But this is Wyrd Wessex, Craig. What are the weirder explanations for the Bermuda Triangle?
Well, Andy, we will come back to the weirder side later. But now it's time we moved on to talk about the perhaps lesser known, but no less concerning, Dragon's Triangle.
Ooh.
So on the other side of the world from the Bermuda Triangle, there exists a section of the ocean startlingly similar in its history of vanishing ships and planes. The Japanese have been aware of this dangerous area for 1,000 years. They've called it a Mei no Umi, or the Sea of the Devil. For centuries, seamen have attributed the repeated mysterious losses of fishing boats to sea demons, restless dragons, who come to the surface of the ocean to seize fishing boats and drag them and their occupants down to their underwater lair.
So, ancient sea monster legends mixed with disappearances. That's definitely more my sort of area.
So while the legends behind the triangle are different, the unsettling reality of things just vanishing remains the same. The strange and mysterious incidents within the Dragon Triangle have actually been well known in Japan and other nearby islands for a much longer time than the occurrences in the Bermuda Triangle. Ships have been recorded as disappearing in the Dragon Triangle for more than 1,000 years. Some researchers even push that back to 3,000 years. Ancient records show that this mysterious sea has claimed vessels from the days of the Sung and Yun dynasties of China, all the way through the medieval Japanese shogunates, right up until the present day.
Is no one going to talk about Godzilla?
Nope.
Fair enough.
I don't know enough about Godzilla to write about Godzilla.
I was just saying, ships disappearing, sea off Japan. That's all I'm saying. Chinese.
Is it wrong that I've never seen Godzilla?
Yes, and we will educate you one day. Chinese legends dating all the way back to 900 BC tell of a dragon's underwater palace located beneath a small island, about 5 or 6 days' sail from Suzhou in Jiangsu province. The stories say that even on windless days, the seas in that spot were too rough for ships to approach safely. And to really lean into the weird element, they also claim strange noises could be heard by those who ventured close, bizarre lights visible for hundreds of miles, shining over the water by night. Fast forward nearly 3 millennia, and we're seeing huge modern cargo ships, vessels over 200,000 tons, carrying oil, coal, and other bulk stuff, vanishing in this exact area, leaving no crew members, no identifiable wreckage, and no flotsam.
Now, when we look at the Dragon Triangle, we generally exclude any disappearances during World War II.
Yeah, right, because during wartime, there's always a risk of mines, submarines, airstrikes. It's a combat zone, and a particularly vicious one at that. Not necessarily a mystery zone.
Precisely. We know about huge losses in the Pacific during the war, the sinking of Japanese aircraft carriers like Taiho and Shukaku, or the battleship Yamato, for example. These were tragic but understood. But there was one wartime incident in the Dragon Triangle that definitely stands out because it wasn't connected with combat at all. This occurred towards the end of the Pacific War. In a book called The Deadly Mystery of Japan's Bermuda Triangle, a commander of a Zero fighter wing named Shiro Kawamoto recalled a last radio message he received. It was from the pilot of the Kawanishi flying boat, a big seaplane that was on patrol prior to the invasion of Iwo Jima.
And there was no enemy planes around?
Nope. It was during a night when no United States aircraft had been reported in the area. The pilot's last message was incredibly chilling and frankly baffling. He said,
"Something is happening in the sky. The sky is opening up."
That's terrifying. The sky is opening up. It's sort of giving images of, I don't know, fabrics of reality tearing, stuff like that, you know?
Yeah. And then there was nothing. Just total silence, no further communication. The plane just vanished. We can't know if similar things happened to other military planes that have vanished in this area because whatever happened to them happened too quickly for any message to be sent.
And after the war, once the sea lanes reopened, the disappearances in the Dragon Triangle just picked right up again. From 1949 to 1954 alone, 10 large fishing vessels and Coast Guard cutters simply vanished without a trace, and with all witnesses going with them. I'm talking hundreds of people lost in that short time. One of the most notable was the Kaio Maru number 5, which disappeared in 1952. What makes this one so significant is that it was actually on a research expedition specifically to find out why the area was so dangerous.
So they went looking for the mystery and became part of it.
Yeah, exactly. The sea was calm, sort of very familiar. The weather was excellent. It had 150 tons of oil on board, but no oil slick was found near its last check-in message, sort of that location it was in. Nothing unusual was said over the radio, which functioned right up until it vanished. The only debris found were 5 completely undamaged empty oil barrels. The theories range from it being sunk by a Russian submarine, sideswiped by a large United States naval craft, or even blown out of the water by an undersea volcano. And then a Japanese magazine, citing those ancient legends we talked about, even suggested that dragons or giant squid had swallowed the ship up in one massive gulp.
Imagine trying to shit that out.
Oh, now you're getting that Godzilla mentality. Wow. Oh.
Yeah, so another one, the Kuroshio Maru number 3, also vanished without an SOS while on a research expedition, this time looking for favourable fishing grounds. The loss of these 2 research ships, quite apart from any data they might have gathered, was a pretty irrefutable indication that the Dragon Triangle holds some serious unexpected danger.
And these mysterious losses of ships and planes have just kept going through the years beyond the research vessels?
Oh yeah, we're talking cargo ships, tankers, ore ships, fishing vessels, as well as passenger and military aircraft. For instance, the Dunav, a heavily laden ship carrying iron, vanished in 1980 in stormy weather. It sent a report about a water leak, but no SOS. Search started immediately, but no oil slick, no flotsam, no survivors were ever found. And just a few days after the Dunav search began, another ship, the Antiparos, disappeared shortly before it was scheduled to dock at Osaka. It was carrying 21,410 tons of scrap iron. Both these ships vanished on main shipping lanes from the United States to Japan. They should have been easy to find. That sudden break-off, contact, and complete disappearance really brought renewed press interest to this area of doom west of Japan.
It sounds like that pattern of vanishing without a trace is consistent with both triangles. Was there ever a ship in the Dragon's Triangle that managed to send a distress call but still disappeared?
Yeah, there was one, the Rose S, a 514-foot cargo ship carrying scrap iron and logs. Unlike most, it managed to send a distress call before it vanished, though it didn't specify what was wrong. Searchers got to the area and noticed some logs, but couldn't confirm they were from the Rose S, and there were no other signs of the ship itself.
It really does seem that this complete vanishing act thing is a signature of both of these triangles. We've talked a lot about the ships, Craig, but did the planes also go missing in the Dragon's Triangle like the Bermuda one?
Absolutely. Planes also went missing, but it's a tricky thing for us to cover because, again, like with Bermuda, there are so many instances that we're in danger of this episode just becoming a really long list. But yeah, you kind of have everything from small civilian planes on routine flights that just vanished to even larger commercial passenger aircraft that disappeared mid-journey, and military planes that simply dropped off radar. Just like with the ships, often in calm weather and with no warning, no distress calls. And adding to that, there are also accounts from the Dragon's Triangle of ships, large and small, finding themselves on collision courses with what were first known in Japan as Mikakunin Hiku Butai, literally unknown flying objects or UFOs.
So we've got ships and planes vanishing without a trace in this Dragon's Triangle from ancient times right up to now. This isn't just about random bad luck really now, is it? Are there any theories about what could be causing all this?
Yes, it was Jack Sparrow the whole time.
I guess that'd explain the ships, I suppose. But what about the planes?
I wouldn't put it past him. So, just like with the Bermuda Triangle, there's a whole bunch of theories swirling around. Some are grounded in science, trying to make sense of the madness, and others, well, they lean much more into the truly weird.
All right, well, hit me with the science first. What do the experts say about the Dragon's Triangle?
Well, one of the biggest scientific theories revolves around volcanic activity. You see, the Dragon's Triangle sits right on the Pacific Ring of Fire, which is basically a massive horseshoe-shaped zone with a ton of earthquakes and volcanoes. This area is riddled with underwater volcanoes that are constantly rumbling.
So, like sudden eruptions creating absolute chaos.
Imagine a sudden massive underwater eruption that could cause colossal tsunamis that just swallow a ship whole without a trace, or send huge amounts of gas and ash into the air, affecting planes. It could also create boiling pockets of water or even shift the seafloor, messing with sonar and wreckage.
Yeah, that's pretty terrifying to think about. Your ship just cruising along and then suddenly the seabed just erupts beneath you. Well, tied to that, there is the methane hydrate theory. It's a big one for both triangles, actually. Think of them like frozen natural gas trapped under immense pressure, sort of on the ocean floor. If something like a seismic shift from a volcanic sort of eruption or activity or an earthquake causes these hydrates to destabilize, they can rapidly turn into a huge bubble of methane gas just straight on going upwards to the surface. And if a ship's on top of one of these when it's coming right up, boom. If a sudden bubble of methane gas suddenly erupts to the surface directly underneath the ship, it dramatically reduces the density of the water. The ship basically loses its buoyancy, like trying to float in the air, and just sinks almost instantly. No time for an SOS, no time to get into the life rafts, it's just gone. And planes flying over an area where this kind of gas is bubbling up could have their engines stall or even explode from the gas coming up towards them.
And then we can't forget the classic weather explanation. The Pacific, especially this region, is notorious for some of the most violent weather on Earth. We're talking about super typhoons, rogue waves, and sudden intense squalls that appear out of nowhere.
So, like the divine winds that were said to have wiped out Kublai Khan's fleet centuries ago.
Yeah. So for listeners who might not know, in the 13th century, Kublai Khan, a mighty Mongol emperor, sent these huge invasion fleets to Japan, not just once, but twice. And both times, Just when they were about to land or were already in battle, massive typhoons basically rose up and wiped out his entire navy. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands of soldiers just gone. The Japanese saw it as a literal miracle, divine intervention to protect their land, hence the divine winds, or kamikaze. While those were ancient legends, they likely stemmed from observing truly catastrophic storms. The Dragon's Triangle is a hotspot for these extreme weather events. A massive rogue wave hitting a ship or a plane flying into a sudden microburst. These could certainly cause disappearances without any chance of a distress call.
Yeah, it's with the Kublai Khan thing, obviously the grandson of Genghis Khan. But I don't know if you ever watched Marco Polo on Netflix.
I have not.
It's good. I enjoyed it. It was 2 seasons and it got cancelled, but I was kind of really looking forward to seeing how they handled the invasion of Japan and that aspect of you know, the divine wind. You know, I was kind of quite looking forward to that, but sadly never got to see it.
Yeah, I didn't know that that's what kamikaze meant until I wrote this.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so volcanic activity, methane releases sound terrifyingly plausible. But I know with Japanese folklore, there is always a story behind the natural world. One of the most famous earthquake traditions is that of the Namazu. The Namazu is supposedly a giant catfish that lives in the mud beneath the earth, and is responsible for earthquakes. This creature is known for being a bit of a prankster, and it's only restrained by the Kashima god. Armed with a magical keystone, which is a rock with divine powers, the Kashima god keeps the Namazu under his control, and the earth stays still. But should the Kashima god relax his guarding vigil, the Namazu escapes his power and imprudently thrashes his body around, causing these earth tremors. Very kind of Loki beneath the ground with the venom dripping into his eyes, isn't it? Another trickster.
Very similar idea, I think. Yeah. But yeah, it's a fantastic image. So if there's an earthquake, it's because the god literally looked away for a second.
Yeah, or had to empty the bowl of poison.
Wrong culture.
Wrong culture. But, you know, it's interesting, the two. It's a prankster, it's a relaxed vigil, or something stopping that vigil, which means the bound god or the bound creature thrashes and causes the earthquake. I like it.
Yeah.
This belief was very strong. In 1855, during what was called the Month Without Gods, this kind of gives me a shudder there, really. In a time in October when the deities supposedly gather at a distant shrine, a serious earthquake struck the city of Edo, now Tokyo. There was widespread damage and thousands died. The popular belief at the time was the Kashima deity's absence had freed the Namazu. So that's the scientific and cultural side. What about the really out there stuff with the Dragon's Triangle?
All right, so now we get to the good stuff, the truly weird. Some people believe that both the Bermuda and Dragon's Triangles are what are known as Vile Vortices.
Vile Vortices. Sounds like my new band name, or something out of like a pulp fiction novel from way back.
I mean, it kind of is. The theory was popularized by Ivan T. Sanderson, a biologist and writer who identified 12 specific areas around the world, equally spaced, that he called Vile Vortices. He claimed these were places where strange electromagnetic anomalies, gravitational quirks, and paranormal phenomena were concentrated. The Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Triangle are 2 of the strongest vortices on his map.
The idea is that these vortices create intense energy fields that can cause instruments to malfunction wildly, disrupt communications, and even affect the mental state of pilots and sailors, leading to disorientation or panic. It could explain why the compasses went crazy on Flight 19, or while Captain Taylor said everything is wrong and even the ocean doesn't look as it should. That's where it really starts to blur the line between science and the supernatural, really, isn't it? If there are these natural energy fields, what are they doing? Are they opening up into other dimensions?
Well, that's where the most out there theories come in, often linked to the idea of time warps or interdimensional portals. Some believe that the intense energies in these triangles can momentarily tear the fabric of space-time, literally sucking ships and planes into another dimension or a different point in time. That's why no wreckage is found, because they're not gone, they're just somewhere else. Like Dr. Manson Valentine saying the planes are still here, but in a different dimension.
Ah. And then you've got, of course, the UFO theory, which we mentioned earlier with Flight 19. If these are energy hotspots, then perhaps they attract extraterrestrial visitors who are either observing, experimenting, or even collecting. Like the last words of Lieutenant Taylor supposedly being, "Don't come after me. They look like they're from outer space." If that was true, that's pretty terrifying. That's pretty nasty. That particular quote is often debated for its authenticity, though, I will say. The idea of an unexplained aerial phenomena certainly intertwines with the overall mystery of both triangles, however. Whether it's aliens or some form of intelligent non-human entity from the deep, or even ancient, highly advanced civilizations like Atlanteans with unknown technology. Essentially, both the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Triangle present us with the same baffling problem, a pattern of vanishings that defy easy explanation, pushing us to consider everything from the extreme natural phenomena to the truly supernatural, unexplainable.
Whether it's sudden environmental forces or something far more weird, these two infamous triangles continue to hold their secrets, and maybe, just maybe, the idea that these phenomena aren't limited to just a specific triangle, but can happen anywhere is the scariest thought of all.
A chilling thought to end on, Craig, but for now, I guess we'll leave that there.
Yeah, so before we do go, there is a small bit on ghost ships in the Dragon Triangle book, but I thought maybe that might be worth covering in an episode of its own.
I do like a good ghost ship story. There's
Yeah,
something really
so
creepy about that Mary Celeste stuff, you know?
yes. There's actually a very, very good story. It's not very long, but there's a good story in the book. Maybe I'll tell it in the afterword. But yeah, so maybe watch out. Hopefully in the future we might do ghost ships. I mean, probably make a good one for the Halloween season.
It's always Halloween season on Wyrd Wessex. And on that note, thank you for joining us on Wyrd Wessex.
Don't forget to sign up to our Substack to keep up to date with the latest episodes. It's free, but if you like what we do, you can contribute a few quid a month and help with the running of the show.
Well, until next time, I'm Andy.
I'm Craig. Stay safe out there and maybe stick to dry land for a bit.
And as always, stay weird.
Ah.